Hello, members, subscribers, and guests of the channel. My name is Yuri. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are new to this channel, nice to meet you. Poll results on YouTube and Instagram showed that the majority of you wanted to hear more on the topic of platonic friendship between genders. So, this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. This is the topic of today's conversation. If you are, not if you are for a treat today because you will have another man's perspective on the matter, and we'll have a conversation live. He's my dear friend. I'll be bringing him in a moment. But before I do, shout out to Ivan for $10 super thanks. I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Remember that you can support this channel through PayPal. I will include the link in the description of this video. You can also do that by super chats and super stickers during the chat, during the live stream, and super thanks, which is a heart symbol underneath the video, which will be available after this video is done, after this live talk is done. Other than that, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can receive all the notifications for future live talks and videos. With that being said, before I bring my special guest, let's see who we have live here with us. Looks like Ivona's in the house. Hello. Shout out to you for the super thanks. I really appreciate that. Joanna is in the house. Hello. Sam is in the house. V is here with us. Looks like we have Sam from UK is in the house. Happy to see you. And Becky is in the house. Thank you all very much for being here with me live. Be sure to comment, to ask questions, and to engage with us as we have this conversation. I will be featuring your questions and your comments on the bottom of the screen. So I definitely would like for you to contribute to this talk today. And with that being said, let me go ahead and bring my friend Michael. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey Yuri, how you doing, man? I'm doing well. How's it going?
I'm good. I see my nephew is right there with you. A beautiful dog by the name Max is in the picture.
Yeah, this is my dog Max. He's a faithful and loyal.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I think we just had a little lag. No worries. Okay. So the topic for today, platonic friendship between genders. And I wanted to quickly read the definition of it that I got from one of the websites, which I don't think we need to go in and actually show the website. Is pretty self-explanatory. So a platonic friendship is a close friendship between two people who are not dating or having sex. So first of all, I guess I just wanted to get your thoughts from a male's perspective. Is platonic friendship between genders possible?
Well, I mean, is it possible? I think it is possible. Many things are possible, especially if you're talking about like childhood friends. If you had a friend for a really long time, maybe they've been close with your family as well growing up. There are genuine platonic friendships that I think, especially children, can make if we make them as children. That can happen. But yeah, I guess the simple answer is yes, but there's so many caveats and exceptions to that there almost seems to be a second rule to that, which we can talk about as well.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of caveats to that because it seems that a lot of men don't think that platonic friendship is possible, and a lot of women do think that platonic friendship is possible. Why do you think there's such a difference of opinion between the genders?
Well, ultimately, I think it comes down to the differences between what men want in a relationship versus what women want in a relationship, and men, or at least the kind of men that I've known, we tend to be very territorial about things that and people that we like, things that we sort of take ownership for. And if, for example, you're talking about a man and his relationship to an exclusive, a girlfriend, right? Somebody who's mutually exclusive, or even a wife, right? There's other rules that kind of are either implicit, that you just kind of accept them, and then there's other things which you can get a little bit more clear and explicit about and clarify. So I think that's where the difference comes from. Is, men and women have different minds, we have different strategies for dating, and that's kind of where those differences come from, in my opinion.
So one thing that I heard just today when I was watching some other YouTube videos is that um, attraction works differently for men and women. And this guy was talking about it in his video. He was saying that men are attracted right away to women and women are not. And I tend to agree with that, because when man looks at the woman, and if he sees an attractive woman, then that attraction is pretty much instant. I think for dudes, we can literally have like a sexual encounter with a woman within 5 minutes if she's attractive enough. Obviously, other things would have to fall into place. Hopefully, you know, you're not in a situation where you be just cheating on anyone or going against your values. But in general, right? In general, like if the attraction is there, it happens a lot quicker for a guy than it does for a woman, because for women, it takes time. And actually, funny enough, there is a study that's been done, and that study is called. It's been done. I'm sure there's a number of them, but one of them was done by Russell Clark and Elaine Hartfield. And so I'm actually going to bring it on the screen really quickly so I can show it. So what they did, men and women react very differently to offer of sex, right? So they have a little introduction here where they were describing what they did at Florida State in 1982. It was a while back, but the concept remains the same. So essentially what they did, an average looking female student approaches you on campus. It says, "I've been noticing you around campus lately and find you very attractive. Would you like to go to bed with me tonight?" You respond in which of the following ways? "I'm flattered." I think they give that's more of an introduction, but the actual study, this was precisely the scenario that Russell Clark and Elaine Harfield set up in their uh, now famous study. It turns out that 75% of those male students who were uh, propositions said yes. So imagine, like, if you ask 10 dudes on, like, by random female on college campus, "Would you like to have sex with me?" Like seven and a half of them said yes. And so these researchers set up the same scenario again, except this time the students were females, and the students doing the proposition were males. And so they just flipped it. And how many women do you think said yes? And they said that none of them did. So that shows just how vastly different we build in terms of um, attraction, and not just attraction, but the timing, right? The how rapid the feelings develop. Not even feelings, man. It's almost like for males, it's just a rapid reaction. Like if we like what we see, we're ready to go. And I don't know how many women really think about that part of it, because I think for women they always tend to think of it from their own perspective. Well, I would have a conversation with the guy. Obviously, I'm not trying to sleep with the guy right away. I would get to know the guy, I would develop connection, I would feel some type of way about the guy. And that's really not the case with dudes. Like dudes just develop this immediate attraction based on physical appearance alone, and I think that's a difficult thing for females to grasp.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great study, because I think it definitely illustrates one of the key differences between men and women. And like you said, when it comes to just the pure attraction, the raw emotion of being physically attracted to somebody, men are very much built like light switches. You can just turn it on And you can also turn it off right away too, right? You can just go on 100% or off 100% depending. But it's very easy to turn that light switch on. And whereas women are more like a volume dial on a radio or something, you have to kind of turn it slowly. It's increments. Of course, things can escalate really quickly. There's exceptions to everything, but as a rule, it does seem that women are not very much like that light switch, that it just goes on, unless you just walk into a room and see Leonardo DiCaprio. But you're not starting from scratch with that guy. You're starting from the point of, knowing who he is for a long time. I'm sure many women have fantasized about seeing him, since Titanic, the movie. And then you have women like, Jeff Bezos' girlfriend, who they're at a gala and she sees Leo and she's with her man, Jeff, and she sees Leo and she can't help but swoon, which is a whole different topic. But I think for the most part, when you're talking about from scratch, a man sees a very attractive woman for the first time, she propositions him or whatnot, he's most likely going to say yes if he's available. Whereas a woman, if she sees an attractive man for the first time, it's definitely going to take her a lot more time than the average man.
Yeah, I think that's the case here. And even with your example with Leo, there's still emotional connection that's been developed, maybe one-sided, not like obviously he wasn't present, but she knows, the woman knows of him, and she's fond of him for certain reasons, maybe because of his acting skills, maybe because the way he spoke eloquently at his interview, maybe because of jokes that he made, right? So there is already emotional tension that's been developed from her end. So Sam said, I think that very few men are honest enough to say that they will have sex with someone so quickly, as perhaps they are aware that it is not what women like to hear.
That is so spot on.
Yes, that is definitely the case. And by the way, I've seen another video earlier today where another guy was talking about this very topic, and he was saying how he's seen men would stick around and pretend to be friends for 3 for 5 years just to be able to slip into this crack once she broke up with her boyfriend. So men, it's like one of those things. If we like you, then we'll like you, and we will do whatever we can to get it. If that means that we have to be your friend for a year or two, then sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of pandering going on, where men will try to do whatever they think the woman wants and will make them happy, with that little chance in their mind that maybe one day I'll get a chance. It kind of goes back to that movie scene from Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey, where he really likes this girl and she doesn't like him that way, but he's like, please, do you think that there's any chance that me and you could ever go out together? And she says, if you were the last man on earth, even then, there's like a 1 in a million chance that I would ever go on a date with you. And his mind is, so you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's obviously it's a dramatic effect, but I think there's a little bit of that in the minds of men, especially men who are not as proficient at portraying themselves as an attractive man and being able to easily socialize with women that they'd like to date, but they've never had a conversation with. So if you're at a social setting and you see a man sees a woman he likes, many men have secret fears and insecurities about just going and having a conversation, whether it's leading to anything or not. So it's more of an issue of whether the man thinks he has access or the availability to be even noticed, right? So since that's from that perspective, attractive women that are attracted to them are very scarce, then they're more likely to take any opportunity that comes their way. So I think there's a lot of that, because when it comes to the initial dating, women are the ones who choose, right? I mean, no, woman's not going to go on a date with someone that she really is not attracted to at all. I mean, unless she's just looking to get a free meal or something else out of it.
Yvonne said, they're usually friends with my boobs first. That's what they talk to a lot. Eventually, they start hearing my words, and that's just goes to show the point about the attraction is very real. Like for men, that's what we thrive off of. It's the physical attraction first, and so sometimes if we see a very attractive woman, then it's almost like we just become like it's seen like you remember that Disney movie. It was like that character, that mouse Rocky, who used to smell the cheese and he would just like literally fly towards the cheese, right? It was a long it was like a old Disney cartoon that I watched back in
Might
Russia.
be
But
dating yourself.
yeah, but it's a similar reaction. Like you are kind of, you're drawn so like so hard to that woman, if you truly attracted to her. So the physical pull that men experience, and I don't believe that it's the same thing that women experience. And in fact, I mean, from everything that I heard, that I know, I presume that it's not the same at all. And so that difference is very significant, and perhaps it's done for a reason, because if we were the same and if we just approach these things the same way, I don't know if, you know, we would pass our genes the same way, and maybe we wouldn't survive as species.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's that component of it where it's just biologically built into us to have our own mating strategies and make sure that they're effective. Because if you really think about it, it's a fact that every single one of your ancestors succeeded in their search for a mate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
So at least once in their lifetime, right? So definitely those instincts are very powerful. And then we have we I think that the drive for either mating or just attraction, those things are very deep embedded in our brains, and they come before even words form, right? You can be attracted to somebody before you even share words. um, so those things can be very powerful, just as powerful as the fight or flight mechanisms, where if you notice a threat in the environment, you kind of want to run or you want to fight, something like that. So at some point, we use words to describe this attraction that men and women have with each other, and but really, it kind of goes beyond words. Sometimes it's very difficult to really pinpoint what's going on for everybody, and we can draw generalizations out of observing many different kinds of people, but it's also very unique to the individual and what experiences they've had in the past. So
All right, cool. So we talked about Russell, Clark, and Elaine Hartfield study. um, Next thing that I wanted to mention is that men and women socialize differently. So men like to do things together, and meaning that we actually we value experiences more. So going on a trip together, going hiking, going to a concert or a festival together, more so than perhaps women do. And that's a general statement, because it seems that women like to talk with each other more. So they like to have get together and listen to each other and understand how they feel about situation, and they go very very deeply into the conversation, which is the next point. But perhaps that's another point to keep in mind, because the question that comes in my mind, um, well, I don't know if I should ask it now or a little bit later, because I let me talk about next point and then we can jump to that discussion, because men and women communicate differently. So this pertains specifically to communication, because men want to know the outcome, and then women want to know the details of experience. So there was a video that was shared in the community chat by Coach Greg Adams. So I know you know who he is, and he, he was really fun in his deliveries always. And he was saying, you know, when men talk about with their friends, other men, about the date, what do they usually say? Did you get some booty? That's really the overarching question that happened, right?
did you
And he
accomplish
said,
the goal?
yeah, when women talk to other women about their date experience, what do they usually talk about? Where did you go, girl? How was the meal? How was he? What did he say? What did he look like? So they never, to my knowledge, I've never recalled a woman say, first thing, hey, did you get some dick? That's just not a thing. It's normally a great detail and great depth of what the experience was actually like during the date, how you felt, how he was, what did you see, where did you go, what did you do. I mean, the depth, the difference between that communication and how we tend to exchange ideas is so vast to me, right? So even if you and I had a conversation, you and I might have deep conversations about some off topics like space, universe, like we geek out on those type of topics. But it's not like you and I are going to talk about what was she wearing, what kind of shoes she had on, like what did she smell a certain way. Boy, we don't give a shit about none of that, you know and women tend to go in great details on these things, right? So um I guess the question that I wanted to pose is, how can men benefit from having a platonic female friend versus how can women benefit from having a platonic male friend? um you know and due to all the differences that I kind of highlighted, because we do socialize differently, we do communicate differently, and attraction works differently for both genders. So, what's your take on that? How can men benefit from having a platonic female friend versus how can women benefit from having a platonic male friend?
Yeah, well, that's assuming that you can have like strictly defined platonic friendship, right? So that's a huge assumption, and I'll just say, a platonic female friend or male friend of the opposite sex is someone who you can 100% be certain that they do not want anything from you more than just a friendship. Like, in other words, it's like a brotherly or a sisterly love kind of situation, which is it's very rare to find that, because usually guys, if they're hanging around and they think the woman's attractive, it's going to be very difficult for them not to develop feelings eventually if they're available and they're looking for someone. But that being said, um, I think that there can be a benefit. Let's just start with the first one. Can men benefit from having platonic female friends? Let's say it's a guy who didn't grow up with sisters or female cousins, doesn't really have that direct experience of the nature of the female mind, right? The psychology. How do women think? How do they communicate? What are they looking for? What things do they not like, etc.? Preferences, all that stuff. I didn't have any sisters growing up. I had a couple female cousins, but there was a lot of rivalry. I didn't really hang out a lot with them. Um, so growing up, high school and then moving away for college, I had to kind of go out of my way to understand the nature of the female mind. And I would make friends who were naturally could talk to women. And I noticed that the guys who I knew who were naturally good with speaking to women, they grew up with sisters. So they kind of came out of the gate. They were very natural at communicating with women. And whereas with me, growing up when I was 16, 17, 18, there was this intensity of like, oh, wow, that's a beautiful woman. What is she going to think? Does she approve of me? Does she like me? Is she going to give me her number, et cetera? All these expectations. Whereas if you've had that all your life and you've interacted with girls, women, you might not have that same insecurity. And so one of the things, especially for men who grew up without very many female friends, if you ever do have the benefit of having a female friend that's strictly platonic, you can kind of understand and get to know from a direct experience that, hey, women actually do think differently. They do communicate differently. There's a different kind of energy that they bring to the table. And it's not like one of your bros at all. And eventually, what I did was I learned that the more platonic female friends I could have that I had no intention, because I wasn't attracted to them, right? Those are the ones I would pick. Uh, they actually were good wingmen. They were some of the best wingmen, because they could point out, I would be getting ready to go out and they would say, are you really going to wear those shoes? You got to clean those shoes. That doesn't look good. Girls are going to pay attention to that. Or that shirt doesn't match with what you're wearing here. Or, you're going to take this girl here. Well, think about this. And they would point out these details that I would have otherwise not known anything about. So I think that's kind of one benefit, that men can have from platonic female friends.
Let's look at what community is saying. Sam said, men can benefit by being introduced to my friends who then might get together. So meeting other people, valid, absolutely. So expanding your network. Um, Becky said, I think both benefit from platonic friendship is advice on how to deal with and date the opposite sex. Also valid because, obviously, if I'm talking to a woman who understands the dating um, the dating world, the dating inner workings of dating, then she can help me with a piece of advice, and maybe she can educate me and make me aware of something that I'm currently not aware of. Yvonne said, "Guy friends will let you know when he's playing you or isn't into you." So, guys, similarly, right? Just to flip in this scenario where guy can be very honest with you and tell you exactly what's going on and what this other guy wants from you. So yeah, there's some interesting benefits there. So thank you for sharing that. Um, my thought on that was, I still think that there's certain ways in which people tend to fall into these platonic friendships. my my perception of it is that most of them develop by means of something else. So for instance, um, common interest club, I call it CIC. So you go salsa dancing, you do kickball league, you do video game conference, you meet somewhere else where a community of people hang out, and is driven. The reason I think that this actually makes sense for being platonic friends is because you are your interest lies in something else. So it's not like the initial intent is that you're not coming in being super interested or pursuing this other person. You're actually coming in because you're both interested in something else. And then you potentially can grow into friends eventually, right? I'm going to talk about attraction as well because um the second thing was on here. So when attraction is absent and there is a bond, right? So that could be actually a bond, something in common. That example that I just gave could be a bond, like a community of interest of some sort. But I just think that when attraction is there, forget it. That is one common denominator where right away, even if you hide it, by definition, is if one person is attracted to another person and they thinking of, whether it's a woman or a man, thinking of the other person as a potential mate, then by definition, it's no longer platonic friendship because there's a hidden agenda that happens.
Definitely, definitely, and that's you make a good point, because even if it's hidden, there's still going to be that undertone there, and it's very difficult to keep a secret like that hidden from someone, especially if you're spending a lot of time together one on one, right? So eventually there will be signs, and it's not good. It's not good when that comes out, and especially if it comes out in kind of an awkward way, and you know, and I think a lot of it, I've seen these situations, and it's usually a guy who's interested in a girl. She's not really interested in him. She might have an idea, a faint hint that he likes her, but she kind of ignores that because there aren't any overt moves that he's making. He's only going to make a move if you make a move. So it's kind of like a stalemate in chess, where like there's no other move that you can make to win or lose the game, and you're at a stalemate. And that's kind of like what being put in the friend zone is like, where a dude's trying to advance on a girl and give her hints, and she's not having it. She's not attracted to him. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I have seen it happen. I have seen platonic friendships happen. It becomes more complicated once either of them become enter into a new relationship and see what their boyfriend or girlfriend thinks about that, or what they feel about that. That's when things start to get a little bit more complicated. in my opinion.
So speaking of the bond, right? Because bond, like this connection that brings people together and make them want to have this platonic friendship. The next question is, how do you build a true bond with the woman without attraction? And the reason I pose that question is because it seems to me that men are instinctively drawn to women that we are attracted to. So the other words, right? If I, let's say that I come across a woman at the grocery store who is starting to talk with me, and maybe she's trying to start a friendship. Let's just assume that she's trying to start a friendship. But if I'm not attracted to her, I think it's going to be more challenging for me, like personally, because I will feel like, well, I mean, I have I already have friends, right? It's not like so I can understand if I'm actually a lonely guy, I can understand that there's definitely can be a situation. I feel like if a girl would approach me at the store and I literally have nobody else to talk to, obviously that would be great because that would give me a chance to speak with someone. But I feel like in my current situation, I'm being completely honest. Like if I get approached by a girl who is like who I will look at and I will feel nothing attraction wise, it doesn't mean that I can be polite. I still be polite, but my first thought will not be, can I be friends with her? It will be like, okay, how can I help you, ma'am? Right? Or girl or woman, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So am I wrong in saying that, or is it, how do you feel about that, like as far as building a bond and men instinctively being drawn to women that they're attracted to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to something you mentioned at the beginning, whereas like men are outcome oriented. We're look our the way that I've seen men's minds work is that we are problem solvers. We like to go out and attack the world. And so unless you're lonely, like let's say you move to a completely different state by yourself, you take a job and you're somewhere else and you have zero friends there. Okay, then there's a problem. Everyone needs to have social interaction. So if you happen to run into somebody at the grocery store who is particularly friendly to you, maybe you help them find something, or maybe they had a question about something, an ingredient that's on a box of cereal, I don't know, and you just help them that way. All right, but other than that situation where the person is, lonely, like you said, there, in my opinion, there's very little need, or there's not enough there to create a platonic friendship, because in my opinion, most friendships serve a purpose of some kind. If you're a kid, you're in school, the purpose is that you're in class together. If you're in college, same thing, you form groups together or common interest groups, or you have these student organizations. Once you're out in the real world or whatnot, and you're kind of in your adult years, you're still in your reproductive years, if you're eventually looking to settle down with someone, then guess what? As a man, if you see a beautiful woman and she's talking to you at the grocery store, you're going to want to see if things can progress a little bit. See where she's at. Is she available? Is she interested in me? Can I get her phone number and meet up with her for coffee? Like whatever it is, guys are going to reverse engineer that situation to get something out of it. And women I think might approach it differently, but it's no different. We're all seeking certain outcomes, and I don't know that just meeting randomly somewhere is the right place for most platonic friendships to form. It's kind of more purpose driven. Whereas if you're going to salsa class together or kickball, the purpose is the event, the function, the activity. Group activities are great for forming platonic friendships, because if the only time you meet up with that person is in a group setting, and let's say you're on a kickball team, you guys all meet up for kickball, and then afterwards you guys all go as a group to go have dinner and drinks, and that's it. You can form those are real legitimate platonic friendships, unless and until you kind of linger at the end of the meeting, at the end of the kickball tournament or whatever, and you try to get a girl's number and you try to meet up with her one-on-one. See, that's a whole, that's not, in my opinion, that's not strictly platonic, because now it's like, what is the purpose of meeting one-on-one? You're already meeting as friends at the event. Are you sure? Are you being 100% honest with yourself in that this is going to be a platonic thing? I don't think that most of those situations are. If you're meeting up with someone of the opposite sex one-on-one, and the thing is too, is like like it said, the heart is deceitful above all things. Your feelings will tell you something. You don't know what to make of it, and you just say, oh no, I just really like them, they're a good friend. It's like, that might not be the only motivation, that they're a good friend. There might be something else there. And so that's why it's also good to have people in your corner who can give you different perspectives as to what's going on in a friendship.
Yvonne said most make friends were friends of friends at one point, or they were friends of my husband, or maybe I worked with them. I don't just meet them randomly. Funny enough, that was one my next point. Friendship by association. So you have common friends or met each other through your significant other. So you just read my mind, Yvonne. Um, yeah, and that seemed to be the case. Like I tend to agree with you, Michael. I don't. I have a hard time imagining that just people of like many women, that is different genders, meeting organically in an open and becoming platonic friends. I just haven't. I haven't heard a lot of it. um I'm hoping that this conversation, if that's the case, maybe open up my eyes on some of these things. But everyone who's watching live, please tell us in the chat, have you met a man or a woman organically when you were out, and do you still have that person as friend in your life? And any details that you would like to share, please let us know, because it seems that there has to be an incentive of some sort to have that interaction from a man's standpoint. And it's not like bunch of females just approaching me at the store when I go for actually, period, with incentive or not, like, period, they don't approach me. So they must not want me as their platonic friend in their life, Michael.
That's funny. That's funny.
Well, because I think there's the point of a conversation where there's always ladies who have an argument that not always, but there's a fair amount of time when ladies have this argument about platonic friends, and that's it's possible. So I'm talking with all the ladies. If it's possible, why none of you talk to me at the store when I go? I buy groceries every week. None of you approach me and want to make me your friend. What the hell? I'll wait.
That's funny. That's funny.
So Sam said, I've never thought of it before, but it is true. Only men friends through common interest or extended friendship group, etc. Becky said, I've made some platonic male friends at tattoo shop and heavy metal concerts. Interesting. So there was, again, that was a some sort of common interest thing that kind of brought you both together at one place. Let's see.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I hear this a lot. Where women will say, "I have this platonic. This is strictly platonic friendships," and it may be, as far as the history of it and the things that have happened, the actions, the behaviors. It's always appeared to be platonic. But if you were to hypothetically test that platonic friendship, and you say to the guy, you text him like, hey, I'm feeling really lonely, I need some company, can you come, and I just want to cuddle and watch Netflix, will you come over? Most platonic male friends, if you can actually ask them that
Run.
question, they're gonna, as soon as you say that, oh, my boyfriend just broke up with me and I'm just really lonely, can you just, you're a good friend, can you please just come and keep me company for a couple hours, we're just gonna watch a movie and I just need a shoulder. Most guys, the reaction you're gonna get inside is their favorite spirit animal, the wolf. They're gonna hear that and they're gonna go, oh, and they're going to be on their way really
Yeah.
fast. And so that's not a platonic friendship. You may have thought it was, and you may be able to enforce platonic friendship rules because of the leverage, because the man secretly wants something from you. And so he's going to jump through every hoop until he gets that chance. But you have to, in my opinion, if I was talking to a female cousin or a daughter or sister, a friend that I really cared about, I would say, hey, if this guy wants to hang out with you alone, are you sure it's a platonic friendship? And I'm not saying this is always the case, but in my opinion, the majority of the time, if a woman is attractive, to any extent, and the man is single, or sometimes even if the man is not single, if you guys are spending time one on one doing semi romantic things away from other people, away from the public's eye, that's very it's a tricky situation to be in. It's not always going to be strictly platonic, especially if you try to make some moves. If the woman tries to make a couple moves, the guy's going to take that as a green light, and he's going to take advantage of the opportunity. Maybe he was always looking for the opportunity. So
Yeah, sorry, ladies, but I think we sort of debunking this myth of platonic friendship when it comes man and female. Again, it's not to say that it is not possible, but it sounds like, based on the interaction and conversation we are having, is that it's more more likely that it will be not possible due to all of the things that we discussed so far. Attraction being the big thing. I honestly think attraction is probably the main thing. If for me, the way that I would sum it up, is that when men are attracted, when men are attracted to a female, then the mindset is how to get with that female at the end of the day. This is not how to become her friend. But we will do that, to your point, Michael. We will do that as long as it needs to be done in order to be in the vicinity, right? In the area, in order to maintain on the horizon. She still can see us. She still can be emotionally somewhat attached to us, or at least reminded of us. And and believe me, if we like you hard enough, we still could be there. It's we only one text away, ladies.
and look, that's it. Truer words cannot be spoken, and just because women don't exercise that option, right, to text their male platonic friends and test the friendship, doesn't mean that he's not one text away from coming over and becoming a non-platonic friendship. That opportunity is pretty much always there. Even if you don't consider yourself to be that much like a highly attractive person, that it doesn't matter. Attraction is not a choice. If the other person finds you attractive, it doesn't matter how you see yourself. You may not think you're giving off the signs. You may not think you're giving him clues, cues, whatever. If the man is attracted to you, all you have to do is say the word, and you're, a couple minutes away from not being platonic. It's really that simple. It's not that complicated. Men are very, very simple and direct. And if you are direct with him that you want something more, a lot of the guys, especially if you say it in a believable way, if you actually genuinely say, hey, I'm genuinely attracted to you, please, like, come over or whatever, most likely the guy might be confused at first. If he has a low self-esteem, he might be like, are you sure? Wait, what? Me? Why do you like me? I'm the one who's supposed to like you, and I'm the one in the friends, in the, what do you call it, the friend zone. But if you
Mhm.
can believably tell a guy, a platonic friend, that you are actually genuinely attracted to him, you've always noticed this about him and that, and now you're single, and like, if you present it to him that way and he believes you, he's going to come after you. That's just how men are, which is why I think it's very difficult for men and women to actually be like adult men and women in their reproductive years. Very, very difficult to genuinely have a platonic friendship.
A-
Um,
and to your point too, he might not even, some men might not even come through. Let's say that, let's just play devil's advocate here and say that both of them really think they have a platonic friendship, and but he kind of like her, and she kind of like to be around him, and she texts him one night, and maybe at first he's confused, but then he decides to come over because he wants to be there for her as a friend. And in that moment, without even planning for something more, in that moment when they together and when they hold each other in their arms or when they hugging, the attraction can occur in that very moment. It doesn't even mean that he was premeditating this sexual attack on you or he was waiting. It's a simple fact that he maybe adored you and he wanted to be around you, and if something happened, he would be willing to take a next step. So maybe he was coming over there with no intention to have sex with you that night, and he was surprised when things escalated. But the thing is that if he's even remotely like you, he is not going to resist of that next step happening, um, even if that means this is going to escalate rather quickly and happens on the spot. So I think the how it all occurs is not necessarily always matters. The end result matters, and the end result is simple in my mind, is that if men like you, man is going to be there, and if they're there, there's already opportunity for escalation. Let's look at few other comments. Becky said, I think the times I suspect the guy friend wants more than friendship, I will pretend I don't know because I don't have many female friends. Plus, if they catch me when I fall, it's not a bad thing. V said, agreed. In high school, I had two guy friends out of a group that I naively thought wanted to be friends. I found out later in my 20s that both of them want more than friendship. Kaya said, so the guy who wants to be friends but lights up when we see each other and rubs my arm all the time, he doesn't want to be friends then. I'm testing that by hitting on him. You should. So actually, this is a great point. You should absolutely test that and, see how far. Listen, there's going to be some men that will respond right away. There may be some men who will play hard to get. Maybe they will be a little shy, or maybe there will be some men who will be confused and just send you wrong messages altogether, right? So it's not to say there's going to be 100% bulletproof or foolproof, but I think that in a lot of cases, a reasonable man who is flirting with you, who's touching your arm a certain way, who is giving you his attention, who wants to be around you, yes, why wouldn't he be open to something more? Because now we're talking about flirting, we're talking about spending time, we talking about building emotional and sort of sexual tension here, because you don't just touch people for no reason. You touch people when you feel a certain way about people, right? It's not like you're just going to touch a random person. So Kaya, you should absolutely do that. Test them out and see what happens. We would love to hear what the outcome would be.
The other thing that I think would be useful for both men and women to be aware of, but particularly women because they're not a man, is that for men the act of hooking up with someone that we're attracted to doesn't necessarily have to be that big of a deal. It doesn't have to mean these things. I think that for most women, you know, to get to the point where they actually sleep with a guy, they have to build up to that point. They have to kind of test him out and feel him out and make sure that he's, everything that she kind of wants in a guy that she's going to do that with. Whereas a man, there's maybe like two or three requirements, and as long as they check those boxes, there's an opportunity, they're going to take it and not think twice. A man can sleep with a woman and at 5 o'clock, and then at 8 o'clock be at the bar with his buddies and just have a good time and not think about that girl for the rest of the night. That very much can happen. And so when we kind of say that, like, men in the background, they just want that thing, even in a platonic friendship, you know, it doesn't it doesn't necessarily mean that much either. Like it almost seems like a man is kind of putting women on a pedestal, and he's kind of making all these grand scheme of things. But the thing is the minute that, let's just be explicit, the minute that they hook up and they reach the climax point, the psychology of the man flips like a switch. It's a completely different thing. It's like before that, there's this dopamine release in the brain that's motivating the man to go after the woman. It's motivation, motivation, motivation until they get to that point. Once the man reaches that point in the act where they reach a climax moment, they get the release. That psychology changes, or it can change very rapidly, and they no longer care. They're not as motivated to be with you or hang out with you. They might actually be looking for the quickest opportunity out of the room, or to get you out, send you on an Uber back home, and then move on to the next thing they were trying to do. Maybe even text that other girl that they're looking to, because man might be trying to hook up with many different girls, and that's so you kind of have to look at it for also from that perspective. Whereas like it's not necessary that sex means a lot to a man, which is even more why you should test your friendships, test your platonic friendships, because if they're not actually your friends, then you're kind of in a situation with someone that is wanting something that could mean a lot, but to them it doesn't necessarily mean a lot. So I don't know if that makes if I made myself clear on that point.
No, you did, and that's wild. The fact that man goes through that, like the hormonal response and the psychology behind that, right? That men are capable of doing that, pursue women, and then get to a point where after that release, it's like the interest might be lost, or at least partially lost.
I mean, for the day at least, they might go out with their friends, have a good time, wake up, not think about you. 2 days later, they haven't hooked up with any other girl, and that urge starts building back up, and then they'll think about you, right? So they're not necessarily thinking about you. They're thinking about what they can get from that situation. So you kind of have to be careful. When you get to know people, you have to, this is why there's always that question of what are the man's intentions, right? And there's many ways to test that, but it's difficult to test that, right? How do you test somebody that is actively trying to use deception to get another goal, a different goal from you, right? That can be a whole nother couple hour discussion in and of itself.
For sure, yeah. Becky, ask a question. Why do some guys tell you they like you more than friends? Then, when you give him an opportunity to sleep with you, they don't. I can say from my perspective, in the past, that when I was young, and I remember there was one case in particular. I went out with the woman, and there was one thing or a couple of things that I learned about her later, a couple dates afterwards, when I think she was ready to have intimacy with me. But I learned something about her that kind of turned me off. And at the time, it was a big deal for me, right? And so when it happened, um, I just didn't feel the same way. So that was strong enough of a reason for me to reconsider, you know, wanting her on that intimate level. So that could be one thing. And I think if it happened to me, I imagine it happened to other men. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that if a guy tells you he wants to be more than friends, you always want to add to the end of that right now, because things can change so rapidly for a dude as far as interests in somebody. So if you're out on a date, or if you're out hanging out and he's telling you he wants to be more than friends, he's basically telling you, I want to be more than friends with you right now. So that if he tells you that, maybe you don't reciprocate and you're just like, oh, that's interesting. And then let me think about it. And you kind of give it some time. You give it a week, 2 weeks goes by, and you're like, you know what? I thought about it. I think I do want to give him a chance. You know how much can happen in those 2 weeks for the man? He can have gone on a couple other instances, dates. He could have forgotten about you. He could have gone on to something else. So by the time, it depends on the time lag, right? If he's telling you he wants to be more than friends, I can almost guarantee you that if you give him the opportunity that same day, he's gonna that's green light. But guys can be moody as well. The guys can have mood swings as well. We're not known for that at times, But I think that if a guy's giving you his interest and he kind of he maybe considers that as a very huge gesture, it's a very risky move to tell a friend, a woman, that you're interested in her as more than friends. If she doesn't reciprocate then and there, he might take that as rejection. It might hurt his ego, his pride, and he might just say, you know what? All right, fine. She doesn't want me. Boom, I close that door. I'm going to go do something else. And then by the time you tell him, hey, I'm interested, he's going, what do you mean? I already moved on. That was 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah,
that's what I think is a possible thing that could happen there.
the timing of
Yeah.
it. That's for sure. That's a good point. V said, "Do you think some women are getting that type of mindset with hookup culture like Tinder, where they can have casual sex and go on about their day like men can?" I don't know if it's going to be the culture, complete culture everywhere, but it seems like the shift has been going on already for some years. Now, again, it's hard for me to kind of gauge where women at and how they feel mentally. I don't believe that they in the same place that men are, because men, the cost, biology is different. The cost of sex is different for men and women. But it seems because of the shift in culture in online dating that we've been going through collectively as a society, I think that there's a fair number of women, a lot of women that look at sex, more relaxed. Like it's not a big deal. If I hook up with the guy, I hook up with the guy. Um, I don't necessarily view it that they can do it the same way that men can. I think men's just it's a different beast altogether. Um, I think men more or less designed to pass their genes. It's like they're trying to give it away. Like, please take my genes. Please take it. It's free. I'm trying to spread this seed everywhere. Whereas women are naturally more selective. They must be, because if you mate with the wrong man, you end up with um, just a bad deal, maybe a bad child with bad genes, right? Like you talking. The reason there's actually a real biological proof of that in nature. You know, animals even today in animal kingdom, the animals will fight for the right to mate. And part of the reason why it happens is because the best genes are being passed. So the strongest genes being passed to female. And back in the day when we existed in the tribal society, I imagine it was very similar. There were people who would fighting it out with either within the tribe, or the best tribe leaders got to mate with most females. And so that's how I think civilization mostly survived, right? And so it still exists today, just in a different form. Like the men who are the best providers, who are the best protectors, who are the strongest, they typically are more popular with females. It's a still, you know, the way that things work. And so I say all this to say that females naturally a lot more selective. They look at men differently. They not look at men just any man and welcome them to have intimacy with them. They still want to be able to find the best possible mating partner. That's my take on it. Sam said, so some guys are using their brains instead of their muscles by building friendships with women in the hope that one or two of them will turn sexual.
That's interesting. Their brains instead of their muscles.
Well, Sam, the thing is that building friendships with the opposite gender, if guy does it out of pure intention and pure heart because he really wants to a friendship with a woman, it's one thing. But I think men also learn that if you doing that with the hidden agenda of getting laid, and that doesn't work out, you realize as a guy that it's a lot of time, effort, and resources that's being invested in this process. So is some guys doing it? Yes, absolutely, some guys doing it, because some guys, quite frankly, I mean, there are levels to that. Some guys probably have low self-esteem and they don't believe that they can get a woman, so they pretend to be their friend to create this comfort level, right? It's like, oh, if I'm her friend, it's like, um I'm not going to be rejected, and maybe eventually, you know, if I put myself in the right position and I'm around her, maybe there could be an opportunity there. So you I understand that there's some of that is not because they just want to take advantage of a woman. Some men legitimately have self-esteem issues and they don't believe, they haven't been successful with women, so they trying to find a way to sort of like break that, um break that, what's the word I'm looking for, cycle, to where they can be successful with women, at least with one or two that they really like. And so that's one thing. um Mike, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I was trying to understand the question a little bit. I think the implication is here is that if men usually try to train their muscles in order to look physically strong so that they can be attractive to women, whereas some guys use their brains and, in other words, they're kind of try to adopt a smarter strategy to date women, and so they build a friendship first in hopes that it will turn sexual. In my opinion, from what I've seen, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I've seen friends go through friendships or situationships, it is very rare for a friendship to just turn sexual. Or at least, like, if you look at it from a numbers standpoint, if you look at 1,000 people who have eventually hooked up, most of those, it's been an initial attraction. And then they built, they got to know each other, which is not necessarily a strict friendship, but they got to know each other under the pretext that they both like each other, based off of that they're looking at each other, the body language, where they're at, if they're out at a bar or at a coffee shop or out in public, if they're flirting with each other from the second that they meet, that is, in my opinion, more likely to turn sexual, you know, uh, so to speak. Um, I think that when women look for men for things to turn sexual, they look for very many different things. I think one component important for many men is to, yeah, you should have some muscles. Like, you should be strong, physically capable. You should show that you're taking care of your body so that you look like you're a very healthy person. But that's just one component, right? You also have to be very well socialized so that you know how to interact and talk with many different kinds of people, whether it's the server at the restaurant or the person at the, at the coffee shop, or, whoever it is, somebody's friend of a friend. Can you present yourself well? Can you dress well? Are you well spoken? And then, are you fun, right? Because I think most women want to have fun, and so I think a men need to develop both, is what I'm saying. Develop both your muscles and your brains, right? You kind of want to learn female psychology, and you want to learn courtship strategies, if that makes any sense, right? But ultimately, you have to know what it is that you want, right? What do you want out of your life? Some people are just looking to hook up, like hookup culture on Tinder or Bumble or whatever. Some people are looking for their future spouse today or hopefully soon, right? Some people are not looking for either of those. They just want to live their life. And if somebody comes along that likes them, then okay, so it depends on what the individual wants. But as a general kind of advice for like someone who's looking to become attractive, you have to kind of work on everything. You have to work on your physical fitness. You have to work on the way that you communicate and the way that you present yourself, your body language, how you groom, how you dress, how you smell, how you interact with people in general, how sociable you are and approachable. So there's all those things go into place, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use a dating app or you have to pick any particular avenue to approach someone of the opposite gender if you're looking for that. I think that there's many, many strategies that you could use. And honestly, I think out of all of them, trying to be somebody's friends in order to sleep with them, it's probably the most losing strategy ever. If you want to sleep with them, you kind of want to you want to increase the attraction from the get-go. Figure out a way to attract the kind of person that you want, but you want to work on the attraction. The friendship, you have friends for a reason. There's friends, and then there's people who you want to be with. And so you kind of, I think the direct approach is more efficient, right? If you're gonna say, like, for example, like those dudes who will be your friends for 2 years with the hopes of like, that's, come on, that's a waste of everybody's time. If all you want from somebody in the end is to sleep with them, you're not really their friend. It'd be like, if, like Yuri, like, if all you wanted from my friendship, was that one day 5 years from now you could ask me for a $10,000 loan, something like that. It's like you want to exchange, you want to kind of invest into something in order to get something in return. That's kind of like, it seems deceitful. Rather, just come up front with what you want. If you're gonna flirt, if you like somebody, just flirt with them and see how if they flirt back, cool. If they don't, move on to the next person. There's many people out there who are looking to respond to you in a reciprocal way.
And this is actually a very important point too, because ladies, uh, for many of you who are watching, it's important to establish proper expectations with the guy. And if you are looking for a truly platonic friendship, I think that needs to be established from the beginning. So, the other words, ask a guy in the very beginning, what is your intention with this relationship? What is the end goal of yours for this relationship? And see what the guy says. Because I think men speak that language. Once again, we speak in language of outcomes and the end goals. We don't speak so much language of the experience. We like to have experiences, as I mentioned earlier. If with our male friends we're going to go throw frisbee, that's an experience. We're going to go to the beach, it's an experience. But we don't talk about these experiences in the same way that women do. We talk about outcomes, right? So, went to the beach, how was it, Mike? It was great, man. Had some beer, had a great time. That's the end of our conversation, really. We're not talking about how hot it was, what kind of sand it was, what kind of fish we saw, like what kind of festival it was there. Maybe we'll mention festival if it's relevant conversation, but you get my drill. Ask a man about his intentions when it comes to this particular relationship or platonic friendship that you're trying to build. And so hopefully that will save some time, and hopefully you're with the honest guy, because you will be surprised. Some men who are honest and who straightforward, they will tell you, like, look, I'm attracted to you. I want to be a friend, but I mean, I really want to have intimacy, or have a chance to date you eventually, you know and then you can, at least you will have that information from the get-go. So protect yourself, be safe, and truth is better. Truth is always better than a pretty lie. Ugly truth is better than an ugly lie. Ugly truth is better than a pretty lie. Here we go. Let's see. I think we have a couple more comments. So Kai said the guy I mentioned earlier had his heart broken badly and hasn't dated in a long time. I think he's more comfortable getting to know me as a friend. Our mutual friends say he likes me greatly. And this could be a great opportunity to start and interact with him and see where it goes. You can ask him, what you can actually take my advice that I just gave and just ask him from the beginning, what does he expect of you, or what's the end goal that he's pursuing, and see what he says. One more remark that I want to make before we wrap up. Ladies, be mindful and be wary of the fact that um, there seems to be a bit of a double standard one when it comes to platonic friendships, from women's end and men's friend, because it seems to be that some women like to exercise their right to have their male friends when dating someone else, but are not willing to accept female friends of her man or her husband. And so it was another video that I've seen earlier today where women were asked, hey, would you allow your husband or your friend to have platonic friends? And the women, like four women, three of them responded like, no, I need to be there, and I need to make sure that they don't talk about anything essentially that will build emotional connection. And one other woman responded, no, flat out, he cannot have any female friends. Yet I think a lot of women expect the ability, to have platonic friends. So understand that you can't have it both. If you want to land a good man, you have to pick. You have to either agree that both have the opportunity to have platonic friends, or none have opportunity to have platonic friends of different gender. That is, we're talking. Otherwise, it gets really dicey. Otherwise, you're going to have to walk on eggshells and say, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. Good luck managing that. Okay.
I would take it a step further and say that it's not even uh, it's not even the best strategy to be equal, right? In the sense of, for example, let's say I'm with someone who doesn't mind if I have female friends, right? But I do mind if she has male friends. I think that's okay, right? I think that you kind of have to reverse engineer the person that you're with and figure out what they really need and want in a relationship to feel okay, to feel attracted, to feel engaged, to feel like they're living their best life with you. And they have to kind of reverse engineer you, and that requires communication. There might be some people who are so generous and open as long as the communication is honest, right? I mean, if you can get to that point, that's great. If you can trust each other to actually say the truth without fearing repercussion, I think that's amazing. But it might seem like some people might say that you're applying a double standard, or that there's, an inequality there, but really, like, we kind of go back to the first thing is, like, men and women are not the same. We have many differences. And so I think it's even better to optimize, figure out what the man wants, and work as hard as you can to give him that. And then the man also figure out what the woman wants and work as hard to give her what she wants and needs. I think it's more important to get what you need and then kind of fill that with what you want. But if you start there, I think you can build something that's a lot more sustainable. So, uh, yeah, that's what I would say about that.
All right, we'll take one more question. Last one. So Sam said, how much is your perspective influenced by the fact that you both handsome, fit, and articulate? Not all men share those advantages. Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. I think the psychology is still same, or very, very similar. So the other words, when we talk about these principles, how men would react or approach some of these situations, it would be very similar, because we think either the same way, or um you know in the way that is super close. So the example is, you having an attractive man who would be trying to pretend that he's a friend of a female just to be closer to a female. I could be, like, am I too ashamed to say that I could be a friend of a female that I'm attracted to? Um, Listen, we talked about this in the fact that it would give me an opportunity to be near her. I think right now, at this point of my life, since I have the knowledge, and since we're talking about this, how would I position myself, and how would I approach this situation? Um, I would need to go on a couple of dates with her, and I would need to understand if there is at least a hint of interest. So if I felt at least a hint of interest, knowing that I am actually pursuing her romantic attention with the possibility of dating or having intimacy with her, then I would need to feel at least a hint of interest. Because for me personally, I lose interest rather quickly if there is no reciprocation on the female's part. That's just me. So, Mike, how you feel?
Well, this one's an interesting question because although I am flattered by the comment, about being handsome, fit, and articulate, it was quite the opposite situation. I'm 34 now. When I was 18, it was quite the opposite. I did not consider myself very handsome at all. Like, if anything, I was an ugly duckling. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't even have a good haircut. I didn't have cool clothes or whatever it was. I was super skinny compared to all my peers. I was tall, so I looked even skinnier. And I was not articulate. I was very awkward and shy and insecure about all these things. And I actually had to work very hard to develop all three things. And it took me a lot of time and a lot of investing in myself. Um, and so I think I have the perspective of someone who comes from both. you know, I do notice that there are advantages to whatever, having charisma or having good looks or being tall or being articulate or being comfortable speaking in uncomfortable situations. There are definitely advantages, but it's not like I was born with all this either. So, my perspective about having certain advantages is that for the most part, besides my genetics, I had to work for many of the skills and characteristics that I now present myself with. Um, so if anything, I have many friends who come to me for advice about either dating or something they're trying to approach, and I always approach it from their perspective of, all right, it's kind of like a chess game. You kind of have to make your next best move, and you want to think 5 moves ahead. So given where you are now, you have to look honestly and the more brutally honest you can be about your position, the better the move you'll be able to make next. You can't change the past. You're only here in the present. So let's say if you think you're someone who's not that handsome or not that fit or not that well spoken, then well, guess what? There's something you can do about each of those things. You can learn. Go on YouTube right now as a man or a woman and figure out what are the things that I can do to groom myself really well, to dress really well, so I could look well. How can I become fit? You can hire a trainer. You can find YouTube videos. You can figure out a diet that works. And I've had to tweak all these things. Everything that I'm bringing up now, these are all things that I can give you 3 YouTube channels on each of these topics. And being articulate, like speaking, like how many books are you reading every month? How often are you going out into the group setting and speaking with people? So there are men who I've spoken to who are like, let's say they're 5'4", they're not that strong, they don't they don't like they don't feel comfortable talking with people. And what I tell them is, hey, that your weaknesses, that is great, because now you can go and tackle each of them head on. There was a time where I was afraid of heights, and I still maybe am a little bit, but I was terribly afraid of heights. And so I made myself go and sign up for a skydiving experience. And I jumped out of a plane, obviously with an instructor tied to my back. It was still incredibly scary. There was a time where I was really afraid of getting into a fight, an altercation. So I signed up a year and a half ago. I signed up for a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class where I'm going and wrestling with people and getting choked out and learning how to choke, learning how to defend myself. And I'm a lot more calm right now. If a bigger man were to approach me and, put his hand on my neck, like we were just at a festival the other weekend, and there were a lot of guys that were a lot bigger than me, and it's kind of a chaotic environment. And in the past, I would have been a little bit nervous in those situations, but now I'm very calm and relaxed. And so there's always something you can do. That's the thing. You have so much personal power, especially, if you live in any country where there's enough freedom, at least here in the US, we have so much freedom. There's no excuse for not becoming the person that you want to become. So that's what I would say. It's all about taking matters into your own hands and being honest with yourself, and then looking for people who have accomplished the things that you would like to accomplish and figuring out what they did. Because nobody starts in first place. Like, nobody starts at that place where they're the best version of themselves. So yeah, appreciate the process and really put effort and energy into it, and keep rinse and repeat that process.
And it looks like Sam said, I think it's a good advice that both men and women can improve their chances through work at self improvement. I think it's always the case. We got to work it ourselves to get better, to be more attractive mating choices and dating choices for other people. And then I would argue that there are a number of other reasons to do that for self fulfillment and self achievement, besides just trying to attract someone else. But my friends, It's been great, Mike. We went a little bit longer than anticipated. I thought that was going to be just a few minutes, but we ended up talking for more than an hour. That was a juicy, juicy conversation. Thank you for joining and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us. It was great to have your perspective, and I hope we do it again sometimes, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This is fun as always, and you know, I'm happy, and I'm glad and grateful that there's people here engaged and listening and wanting to share. And you know, this life is all it's a big experiment. So I think it's great to kind of share our experiences. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks to everybody who's here in our live YouTube stream today. It's been a great hour and a half.
Absolutely. Any closing thoughts on the topic of platonic friendship between genders?
You know, it's something that kind of goes unspoken that I assume everybody has a connection to. And the most important thing I would say is, guard your heart. Your everything you feel in life, everything from the highs and the lows in your life, everything kind of passes through your heart. Every experience that you have passes through your heart, right? And from the state of your heart, that from that flows everything that you do every single day. From the way you deal with people who cut you off in traffic, to the way you speak to your boss or any subordinate, the way you speak to your kids or your parents or your everything has to do with how your heart is currently feeling. And sometimes we tend to neglect it if we're kind of so object oriented. I got to do this, I have to go do groceries, I have to get to work, or I have to plan this thing, I have to call this person. We kind of go around. But if you kind of every now and then you want to stop, take a deep breath, and feel your heart and feel where you're at. Because if your heart can be open and honest and strong, if you can come from that place, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to make better acquaintances because you're going to resonate with people who also have a similarly postured heart. And above all, I think it is important to have as pure of a heart as you can, which is why I love hanging out with my little godson. He's 13, and his sister is like 10. They're great to be with because kids generally have pure hearts, and we can learn a lot from them. And when it comes to dating, it's very easy to get muddled in other emotions that are not coming from a pure heart. And we tend to get all this blowback, right? If something goes the wrong way, you get rejected, or you don't get what you want, or hearts become bewildered. And we do have to find a resting place, which is what real platonic friendship is about. It's about guarding each other's hearts and helping each other grow, and not having ulterior motives. And I think that's, if I were to leave this conversation with one thing, it's like be aware of where your heart is at today, tomorrow, and like every day. Cause that's kind of the most important thing when it comes to human behavior, human psychology, and relating to others. So that's my final remark on that.
Appreciate you, my friend. Much love. Thank you for being here and sharing your amazing knowledge with us. I'll be seeing you soon, brother.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
Later, brother. My friends, Kaya with $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. That means the world. I appreciate your support very, very much. Let's acknowledge before we get out of here. Let's acknowledge everyone who joined. We have so many members of the channel right here with us right now, which is awesome. So Yvonne is in the house. Kaya is in the house. Um, Janina joined us as well. Sam is in the house. Michelle was here with us. Becky was here with us. V was here with us. Heather was here with us live. Liz were here with us. Thank you for your compliment. I appreciate that very much. Let's see. Am I missing somebody else? Latanya was here earlier. Appreciate you stopping by. Shout out to all the members. Sam stopped by earlier. This was a great talk, everyone. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Great conversation. Special shout out to Mike for joining and sharing his perspective on this topic. Next live is going to take place on Sunday, June 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. Let's do this. Let's talk about, does the size matter? I know we had an interaction among the members in our chat on Instagram regarding this. So, you know what? Why not? Let's talk about it and see where it goes. All right. I think it's going to be a fun conversation, if anything else. So we are going to leave it at that. We are going to talk about that particular topic next weekend. All right. Put that hashtag prototype fam in the chat before we get out of here. Mark your calendar for next Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern USA time. And if you have some thoughts on the matter, please send it to me on Instagram or the email. Yes, we just taken 180-degree turn from platonic friendships to, does the size matter? Expect to unexpected. And Mike with the $10 super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, my friend. You didn't have to do that. Much love for you, for your kindness and support. I appreciate you. Prototype fam. Yes, Mike is amazing. On that note, my friends, thank you for joining. Have an amazing rest of your weekend or beginning of your day, depending where you're at in the world. And I'll be seeing you soon. Okay. Thank you all for joining. Until the next time. Peace.